Hey everyone, welcome back to Self-Serving Skillet. Today we are going to sear some meat with the intention of making an absolutely beautiful pan sauce. This also doesn't have to be with meat. You can do this with vegetables. You can sear some onions. You can make a completely vegetarian pan sauce for your seared veggies. And the first step is getting this meat dry. You want a dry top to form a crust, because that crust is going to get down into onto the pan and create our fond. Fond is the beautiful leftover bits of crust that are stuck to our pan that we scrape up. It's going to form our pan sauce. Now, I know that some of you are gonna freak out about having all these meats together, about me touching them. Listen, gloves are a crutch. Gloves are very useful when you don't want something to come in contact with your hand, like a hot pepper, or if you're doing a lot of spices, maybe you don't like the smell of garlic on your fingers. I happen to love it, but a glove would be appropriate then. When you're dealing with meat, wearing gloves, I think, is just a substitute for washing your hands, and there's a mental disconnect there. When you have a pair of gloves on, I've seen people handle a hamburger in restaurants and then go mop a floor. You're still cross-contaminating. You're just not thinking about washing your hands. So I'd rather see a pair of clean hands touch my food than a pair of dirty gloves. But just to be food safe, I am using different paper towels to pat these dry. I'm also going in the order of what I will be cooking the most, what will achieve the most well-doneness, from medium rare to all the way cooked through. So I don't usually cook like this. I usually will make 3 or 4 chicken thighs at a time, 3 or 4 chops at a time, etc. Make lunches for the week, make leftovers for dinner so I don't have to cook every day. This is just so that I can show you the different ways that we're going to do it. Everything is dictated by that I'm filming and the content that I need to show, so I'm aware. So I have washed my hands here. All of my meat is dry. I'm going to get a layer of salt on top of these. By the way, this marinade that I used here, this was just 1 orange and 1 lemon. I'm going to turn this steak into sort of a Carne Asada idea, and I like marinating in this. You do have to flip maybe a couple times to get the marinade working really well, but I do like marinating in this rather than a plastic bag, because now I'm not wasting a plastic bag. Salt over the top of all of these, and salt is just going to help pull out the moisture from that top layer there, help us get that really nice crusty skin, especially on this chicken. It's going to be beautiful. And then that goes in the refrigerator for a little bit of time. I'm gonna try to leave it in there for about half an hour, 45 minutes. You can go all day if you want to. And this step isn't absolutely necessary. The reason we pull the water off is to get that nice crust. But if you put it face down in the pan with moisture on it, it can still be delicious. You're just not gonna achieve what we're trying to achieve today. Sear, that's gonna be more of a steam. It's gonna steam and you're not gonna get quite as textured of a crust. I'm gonna start out with a very simple pan sauce, kind of the most basic pan sauce that you can make. And with all of these, I'm going to use this stainless steel fry pan, and I'm gonna do it dry, at least for this one. When you put your meat down in a dry pan, it's gonna stick. But once the Maillard reaction is complete, once it browns, it's gonna start to release itself. Furthermore, this chicken skin is gonna release a lot of fat into the pan. So if I put some oil down in here now, I'm gonna be swimming in oil a little bit later. Test it out with some water, and it just balls up, dances across the skillet, and that's when you know you're ready. Face down over the hottest part of our skillet. And I'm just gonna wait. In fact, let's set a timer. All right, that's been down there for about 20 seconds, so I'll just add 20 to this, let you know how long this takes. We are at about 5 minutes, and let's see if this skin releases, and just like I said it would, it did. I'm gonna turn off this heat and go into an oven kind of as low as you care to go. It really depends on how long you want this to cook for, when you want to serve dinner, but I turned it down to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, which is somewhere around 160, 165 Celsius. It's gonna be in there for about 25, 30 minutes, something like that. It is a smaller thigh, but it is a lower temperature. The lower the temperature and the longer you take to come up to temperature, the juicier this is gonna be. I'm gonna use a lot of shallots today. I'm gonna use shallots in almost every single pan sauce, so I might as well cut all those up here while this first chicken is in the oven. Cut up my shallots, and then I'm gonna use some garlic too in one or two of the pan sauces, so I'm gonna get that going, put it in a separate dish. And another thing that I'm gonna use is butter. Butter is the base of all pan sauces. It doesn't have to be butter, it has to be fat of some sort, so it could be oil or it could be cream, but butter, in my opinion, does give you the best result. So I'm gonna cut that up and put it in the refrigerator because it has to be cold for what we're doing today. This chicken has been in here for about 25 minutes. It is beautifully brown on the top. Yeah, that's done. It's important that it rests, and my preferred way of resting meat is on top of that rack that I have all my meat on in my fridge that's obviously occupied. If you don't have one of those, or you're in my situation, you can rig up sort of a knife and fork tripod for your chicken. Try not to lose the sear. I'm not too worried about it. I'm just gonna put it on the plate. It's really that top skin that I'm worried about. And look at just all of this beautiful fawns that's left behind. That is what's gonna make our pan sauce so amazing. So heat goes back on to a medium low. We want this pan to be sort of uniformly hot. I can already see the fat bubbling away, and we're going to do something that's called deglazing the pan. And that just involves putting liquid into the pan. It helps if it's acidic, but it doesn't need to be. And we're just gonna go in with about a cup of liquid. And in this case, I'm using chicken stock. We want to use this to scrape all of this beautiful fond off the bottom of this pan. And then we're gonna simmer this until it reduces by at least half. Sometimes I like to go more than that. And our butter should be refrigerator cold. And this cleans your pan. This will clean your pan, and if there's no other motivation for you to do this, if you just don't like sauces for some reason, you can do this with water and clean your pan. Make it less work for you at the sink. But you know, wouldn't you want to pull double duty and just elevate your cooking game just a little bit? There we go. Now, if you see that line that I just made in the middle there, that's what you're after when you can draw a line through and it holds for a period of time. It's gonna come back together, but it's gonna hold on the pan. That's when you know it's thick enough. So you're gonna kill your heat, and then you are going to mount it with refrigerator cold butter, one little cube at a time. Usually I do this with tablespoons at a time, but today I'm going smaller. I'm gonna be nice and precise and kind of show you the the process. Now, why we want to kill our heat is we don't want our butter to separate. We want it to slowly emulsify into this sauce. And once my butter is about that size, I'm gonna drop another one in there. And this is both cooling off the sauce and thickening it a little bit with butter. This is gonna be very nice. And if you do break your sauce, if it does sort of come apart, and you'll know just by looking at it if it does, because it's not gonna look smooth anymore. It's gonna have some texture to it and not be holding together very well. But if that does happen, you can just add a little bit of water to your pan sauce and it'll pull right back together. And we can already see after just about a tablespoon of butter, stirred in slowly, mounted slowly into this sauce, that we're getting a little thicker, we're getting a little bit more luxurious. I need both hands to do this without the oven mitt, so make sure you're not grabbing this handle. It did still come out of a 300-degree oven. And I think that this will do it. After this last knob of butter disappears, we're getting a little bit cooler, and the sauce is getting a little bit more luxurious. This is gonna be great. I can already tell. This is probably the simplest sauce that you can make. And in a little bit here, I'm gonna show you how to elevate it just a little bit. There we go. Let's try that. Aha, there we go. That's just barely coating the back of the spoon. I could go in with another knob or two of butter, but I think we're done. I'm just gonna eat this one like a caveman because it comes right on the bone, and that's the what it's there for. Oh man. Oh, that's so rich. And the sauce, man, this sauce all by itself it just elevates this entire chicken. It's done with intention now. It's supposed to be like this, rather than just serving someone a chicken thigh, which is, there's nothing wrong with. That's one of my favorite things to eat. Chicken thigh fresh off the grill. Oh, I love it. But this. But what if I want to take it a step further? A great way to elevate the pan sauce that we just made is that I'm going to take this store-bought chicken stock and I'm going to add a packet of gelatin, and this will just simulate a homemade chicken stock. If you have homemade chicken stock, this is already in your stock. You're going to be just fine. But if you bought it and you want that homemade feel, that homemade mouth feel, this is a little culinary trick. This is going to be almost the same. We're going to go through the same steps. We're going to get that nice Maillard browning on our chicken skin. We're going to put it in the oven. When we take it out, we're going to keep the pan nice and hot. But this time, we're going to sweat some shallots for about 3-4 minutes in that fond. We don't want to burn it. We want it to stay nice and brown. So if we find ourselves burning the fond, we're going to add our liquid right away. But keep it on a nice low heat. You should be able to bring some nice flavor out of those shallots. And when the shallots are smelling really good, because that's the flavor that you're going to eat, then we add our elevated chicken stock, with the gelatin. Give that a little scrape up all that beautiful fond like we did the last time, and then we're gonna, again, reduce by half, but this time I'm gonna add some herbs. I'm gonna add some thyme, because I think that goes really well with chicken and with butter. Same story here. We're gonna mount this with butter just a little bit at a time. Kill your heat, get your butter in, get it going, and it's going to emulsify into that sauce, thicken it up. When we're done with that, the change I'm gonna make is I'm gonna squirt just a little bit of lemon juice in there to cut through that fat. Let's see. That one looks even better, and it smells just amazing. This is just so luxurious. That aromatic compound with the shallots, the lemon right on the back really complements the thyme. This is just really, really elevated above the last chicken that we did. But what if I don't have a chicken thigh? What if I have a pork chop? These are pork loin chops, and I'm gonna do much the same thing. I'm gonna sear it on both sides about 5 minutes aside, go into the same 350-degree Fahrenheit oven, but this time it's only gonna spend about 5-6 minutes in the oven. This cooks through pretty fast. When that comes out, I'm gonna have the same idea. I'm gonna have a lot of fond on my pan. So first I'm gonna sweat some of those shallots that we cut up earlier. And once those are nice and fragrant, I'm gonna deglaze my pan with a little of that whey that we have left over from making that goat cheese. This is specifically the goat whey, and I'm gonna go about 50-50 with that and sherry. I think that's gonna go really well with pork. We're gonna reduce that by half, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of powdered ginger. I think that's really gonna tie the pork and the sherry together, and then mount it with butter. Mount that with butter until that's nice and creamy. It's looking really good. And then to finish this sauce, I'm gonna add a little bit of sherry vinegar, tie in with the sherry, a little pop of acidity. Let's see how it tastes. Oh man, it smells so amazing. This pork is done perfectly. I might have overdone the pork a little bit, but what more than makes up for it is this pan sauce. The sherry makes it this really nice kind of caramely, like savory caramel. And the whey gives it this really nice tangy note. Oh man, this is just a treat. And for this last pan sauce, I want to make sort of a steak dish that's inspired by carne asada. Obviously, carne asada doesn't have a pan sauce to it. You would serve it with a salsa maybe. So that's where I'm gonna take my cues. I'm gonna make sort of a red wine tomato pan sauce. I'm gonna toast up some whole cumin seeds to get a really nice carne asada flavor in there. And then I'm gonna deglaze my pan with only a red wine. You can use a little bit of beef stock if you want. You can go back and you can use that whey. All I want is the red wine, and then I'm gonna add to that a little bit of the tomato juice from these whole peeled tomatoes that I just opened. Hopefully give a little bit of a salsa flavor in there. And then after you reduce, same thing, you're gonna mount it with butter until it comes together. At that point, I'm gonna add my cumin because it doesn't really need any more flavor to come out. The toasting has really done that for me. And I'm gonna finish it off with a little bit of this marinade. Don't worry, I did my due diligence. I brought this to a boil, practicing food safety. This is just lemon and orange. Liven it up a little bit. There's only really one way to cut this flank steak is against the grain. The grain is very obviously going one way, as you see, and you want to cut it as thinly as possible. This is a relatively inexpensive cut of beef, so it brings the price down. The per serving of this that I'm gonna do is probably about $3 per serving. And then I'm just gonna take all of this and I'm going to toss it back into the pan sauce. Get this all combined together. I might serve this over rice or on top of a salad in a tortilla. Oh man, That is so nice, so beefy, so wonderfully moist and tender because we cut it very thinly against the grain. The wine has reduced to almost a coffee flavor with the toasted cumin. It's very nice, it's very deep, it's very unctuous. And I let the star of the show shine. The meat informed my flavor profile, informed what liquid I was going to be using, what acid I was going to be using, and any sort of flavor enhancements. So you really got to let your hunger be your inspiration on this one. If you like beef, a couple summers ago, I did a ribeye out on the grill. That was so good, and I'm gonna leave that right here for you. And if you're more interested in chicken dishes, I do a lot of pan sauces in this series too. I do a chicken breast series. About a year ago I did that. There you go.